So
Got it.
Taylor Duncan, everyone, District 63, Taylor Duncan founded the Alternative Baseball in 2016, diagnosed with autism at age 4. Taylor is at the forefront of raising awareness and spreading the message on the importance of inclusion for those with autism and other disabilities. Growing up, he often wasn't allowed to play baseball due to preconceived notions of persons with autism. Undeterred, Taylor improved his technique by working with some of the best players in baseball and slow pitch softball. Today, Taylor's organization is comprised of over 75 teams in 30 states and growing across America, with future aspirations for international expansion. The organization enables teens and adults on the spectrum with other disabilities to strive to break the barriers and change perceptions that easy for me to say, right? Through the authentic baseball experience. District 63, would you welcome the incomparable Taylor Duncan?
I am an advocate. In addition, I am a mentor, mainly with the purpose and calling to pass my life's worth of lessons from experience to help others just like myself become successful individuals in society. Yet, there poses several questions for all of us to consider. What is an advocate? What does it mean to become an advocate and a mentor? Where is the inspiration to become an advocate and a mentor often derived from? Why should we even take time out of our lives to help others? What's the point? For me, the answers come from my own experience of having someone advocate for me, someone to mentor me in various aspects, and also teach me to become my own self-advocate in this very difficult world that we live in. My story as an advocate and a mentor began on November 27th, 1995. The day I was born to my parents at Kennestone Hospital in Marietta, Georgia. I was born in seemingly normal shape at a healthy weight of 8 pounds at around 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Yet fast forward nearly 4 years later to the day, my mother begins to see that perhaps something was simply amiss. First of all, I wasn't talking in complete sentences. I had issues with social anxiety, issues which often prevented mother and I from being able to go out in public. And last of all, I often played alone, away from the other children at the time. My mother then took me to the Marcus Institute located in downtown Atlanta, which was one of the only autism centers in the entire Southeast region of the country at the time. It was there in which I was diagnosed on the autism spectrum as 1 in 1,000 children in the entire United States, set in the time before the CDC even began taking statistics. Now, according to the latest CDC statistics, around 1 in 44 children are now diagnosed on the autism spectrum. Woo! Quite a ways away from the days in which I was diagnosed as 1 in 1,000. Heck, I could have been one of the only known individuals in the entire county I lived in at the time to actually be known to be formally diagnosed. Now, soon thereafter, I obviously began experiencing the negative stigmas and perceptions of what one with autism can and cannot accomplish. For example, the doctors, they go over a list of the things with mother that I may never be able to accomplish throughout my life. These included the mastering ability to speak in full sentences, the ability to think coherently in academics, the ability to perform basic independent living duties, or the ability to hold down a job or romantic relationship. Soon thereafter, the public school system wanted me placed in a special classroom, basically meaning that I would be secluded away from the other kids in the general education setting where social development primarily would take place. Yet, my mother would never accept such to happen or to let that become my reality. As an educator herself, my mother fought against her own employer, her own boss, for me to have the same social development opportunities as every other student at that school. You might say that this was one of the first instances in which I had someone, well, my mother in this circumstance, stand up for and to advocate for my basic human rights. Now, indeed, in spite of lack of resources in the rural area we lived in at the time, my mother made the most of her time, taking time with me every single night over the next few years to work with me on different skills that otherwise would have naturally developed in those without a disability. During this time with hard work and her I can attitude, I finally began speaking in full sentences, among finally achieving other developmental milestones. Ta-da! Indeed, there are individuals who were involved early on in my life who were gratefully concerned about my ability to talk in full sentences, to speak clearly, and to hold down conversations, much less hold down a conversation without umming and ahhing every other breath. With some still in my life 20 years later, several of these individuals would astonishingly tell me, my gosh, I don't know what I was thinking 20 years ago, thinking about your few words. Now, you talk too much. What a true blessing in disguise it is to have the support and to learn the basics of independent living, something never to take for granted. With the help of my mother and teachers who believed in my ability to thrive in the general education setting, there were truly many celebratory times in my early childhood period. Yet during the time span from 2000 to 2006, I would face many instances of adversity, challenges, and obstacles that I'd faced at my young age. I would begin to be denied opportunities to play on traditional baseball teams, often due to the perceived injury risk of an individual with developmental delays. Furthermore, I'd also be denied the opportunity from developing some friendships due to the common negative perception of autism. And in 2006, my mother and I had difficulties with my teacher and the school that year, in which they didn't want to give me the accommodations that I needed to be successful the best way that I learned. Instead, I was expected to do and learn everything exactly in the same manner as all of her other students in the class. Damn you if you're different. To make matters worse, the school system was also trying to deny those accommodations and services that I've been guaranteed in years past toward my high academic grades. The teacher would act in retaliation every time I tried to fight back. Yet once again, my mother stood up for me in the face of adversity, inspired me through her example to build resilience and that ability to persevere against bullying from the teacher and from other students. She fought for me to keep my services and to keep the school in line with the goals and objectives of the DEA Act, a federal act structured to guarantee students with disabilities with extra reasonable accommodations, not a competitive advantage, in order to learn the materials at hand and to be able to do so in a way that we excel at it. Her example as an advocate for me taught me through witnessing the experience with how to stand up for my own rights. Guess what? From that point forward, I attended every single IEP meeting. What is that, you may ask? Well, they're meetings that discuss the implementation of goals and objectives in line with my academic accommodations. The school teacher, however, and administration, they didn't like that at all. Oh no, not at all. They tried to keep me away. They hated the idea of a student standing up for himself within the public school system. They thought they were holier than thou and basically better than everybody else. Yet regardless, I built this desire to stay strong and determined, knowing perhaps this example could pave the way for others like myself to have an easier path without such struggles. I kept pressing onward until I finally understood, displayed a willingness to learn, and communicated that the law was actually on my side. They couldn't turn me away from attending my own meetings or to be able to stand up for my own rights. I had to work hard to be part of my own discussions about my own academic future. With the help of my mother and the Lord up above, I developed that ability and that desire to become an advocate, not only for myself, but on behalf of others too, humanity at large. Now, in the years since, my mother would take me out of public school to homeschool me, largely focusing on developing life skills for everyday independent living. I would try to keep seeking athletic opportunities back home, although they were often really hard to come by. I would also still struggle at times in social situations. The lack of understanding in society, especially in this competitive meat culture that we live in, is often the reason that I would still struggle sometimes. Yet when I met this major influencer in slow pitch softball from the greater Toronto area, things changed. He was hosting his yearly spring training with the pros camp in Kissimmee, Florida for a week, chock full of instruction, networking, and experiences to remember for a lifetime. However, I knew this type of event was mainly geared toward those who were much more experienced than I was. Nevertheless, I was bothered to take me down to Florida. She was understandingly hesitant, considering my past experiences locally in sports of being treated as less than and not having fair opportunities like everybody else. I kept pressing to ask, though, if I could go, and she told me, if you think you can, if he says yes, I'll take you down to Florida for the week. Thinking I'd be denied just like I was often denied opportunities back home, I asked anyway. And my gosh, surprisingly, he said yes. I worked hard to raise the money to go to Florida, and off we went in April of 2014. Man, I was incredibly nervous. Mostly the unknown, the fear of the unknown. Yet when I arrived at the Osceola County softball complex, I knew this opportunity would become molded into one of the best experiences in my entire life. Many of those Canucks that I met that week took me under their wing, working with me on different techniques and skills to apply back home. What was even better, you ask? I felt like for the first time in my life, I was actually part of a real team setting. That week consisted of hours upon hours of practice and exhibition games, skills I wanted to work on for improvement back home. The only things I was judged for, though, beyond the game, was for positive reasons. My willingness to have a hard work ethic and my willingness to display an open mind and to be able to learn from others. Be able to do so in an area where you're not judged for having a disability and you're not judged for having anything else except the desire to work hard and to learn as much as possible. For that reason, it was suggested for me to participate in a home run derby with major level players. What? Ah, I had no idea I'd be participating in such an awesome event with those who I wanted to be like when I first got into the sport of slow pitch softball. In addition, some of those major guys, I believe, had once played in the minors and the majors in baseball and had long retired. At first, yeah, I was hesitant. Yet those crazy Canucks just kept pushing for me to participate. I said yes and arrived at the Osceola County Stadium that evening. At the time, it was a spring training stadium for the Houston Astros. It was later the minor league stadium for the Florida Fire Frogs and the Atlanta Braves. It was a huge stadium, much larger than you would ordinarily see on television, on TBS. Although I didn't hit any home runs in the ginormous stadium grounds, it's still worthy to note that I still had the time of my life. The opportunity to spend time with the bat and balls on stadium grounds in front of a very supportive environment was something way beyond what some ever thought I could ever accomplish back home. All with those who are actually cheering for me, regardless of whether I won or lost. With the lifelong friendships made with these mentors and the new skills learned, I was encouraged, accepted, and instilled the confidence to make a difference in the sport back home. Even though I still face those negative perceptions and stigmas of autism back home, I still held that desire to use my lessons learned in life to help others just like myself, all in order to power through those stigmas, to power through those perceptions, to power through those stereotypes. It was my turn to be an advocate for those like myself, to see and participate in new athletic opportunities, to mentor others in much the same way those great folks for me did down in Florida. At the age of 20, I started this endeavor by founding a nonprofit organization, Alternative Baseball. Ta-da! In order to provide the authentic baseball experience for other teens and adults with disabilities across America. I started Alternative Baseball to provide a competitive experience for others like myself, yet in a way where all are accepted for who they are, encouraged to become the best versions of themselves possible, and instilled the confidence needed to fulfill dreams in life on and off the baseball diamond. We mentor our players and teach them how to play and exceed at the game of baseball independently, often placing them in situations and in ways in which nobody thought were possible. That authentic baseball experience means we play the pastime just like those who play on television and AM radio. With wood bats, base stealing, and all. The only adaptation in an alternative baseball is this ball right here, slightly larger and much softer than regulation size baseball. And we utilize this exact ball in order to accommodate players of all skill levels, from starting out all the way up to the competitive level. In 2016, we started out with 6 players in a small exurban community in Cobb County, Georgia. Today, we have a reach of around 50 plus areas in a number of different states, continuing to evolve with new, fresh, and exciting ideas to draw those like myself into the sport and to enrich in physical and social skills growth. And in the end, change lives for the better and provide a sense of empowerment and motivation for those players and everyone involved to go out and be able to live their life with the most happiness and the most confidence possible. One of those new ideas is called ABO versus Pros, a new project involving the recruiting of the most advanced level baseball players with disabilities across America to play a real 9-inning exhibition game at a professional baseball stadium versus former major league stars. The real deal, folks. The purpose of ABO versus Pros is to raise awareness and acceptance through this inclusive celebration of determination for the true capabilities of those with disabilities. It is happening on November 5th at AT&T Field, right in your Toastmasters district, home stadium of the Chattanooga Lookouts. To me, though, alternative baseball isn't just a game or a sport. The world's pastime itself presents its own way of life, encouraging teamwork and the family-style camaraderie. Several of our players have gone on to successfully hold down jobs and to utilize confidence and encouragement to become more independent members of society. More productive, too. Most importantly, we present this opportunity to new communities as a solution for the general lack of services that hit hard in big and large areas and small areas across the country. Unfortunately, for many with disabilities who graduate into high school, the number of available services will often begin to dwindle. About right here, but halfway to zero, either due to age caps or the fact that some may end up scoring too high on certain tests to continue their fun and their participation. Once these individuals graduate from high school, the few services which remain will become out of reach for the same reasons. And some that do exist simply do not and are not targeted enough to fulfill the needs of all participants, because the disability spectrum is very wide, so wide that the media cannot really go out there and cover the entire spectrum at once within a 1 to 2 minute segment at a time. It all has to be broken down into different niche subjects because the disability spectrum is so wide. Everyone is truly, truly different, like God has made us in the first place. In areas as big as Los Angeles and New York City, small areas like Meridian, Mississippi, and North Platte, Nebraska. The service deserts are real across America, even across the globe, in disadvantaged, impoverished areas that do not have the resources to effectively serve those across the entire disability spectrum. To promote the cause and to emphasize the need to populate the service deserts with new ideas and services, I needed to shed any public speaking anxieties I had in order to take my story where it was needed. Let me tell you about a hot summer day in July of 2016. When I was reading the local newspaper, when I found out about Toastmasters International, an organization with the structure to mold people into better public speakers in society. I found out when, where, and how often the local Toastmasters Club meets. I will be the first to admit that when I attended my very first meeting, I was timid and shy. I didn't say very much at all, quite frankly. I had so much anxiety that I couldn't hardly get my butt unglued from the chair to perform an impromptu speech with other members and guests for the table topic session. Yet, I loved the way the meeting was structured, more so the diversified and relatable stories from the speakers themselves. This is when I said yes, and soon joined Toastmasters of West Georgia. Excited for all the growth to come with local club members that had almost very similar stories in their own aspects. They all had their own reasons for being there. And to be able to learn those stories and to be able to learn how to cater my story to those audiences, it was an exciting time and opportunity to be able to learn those crucial elements to what makes a good speech and a good leader. When I got home from my first meeting, though, I spent the rest of the night practicing the I counter roll. Now, John will tell you from the podcast that I spent nights consecutively counting an astronomically high number of ums and ahs from politicians and celebrities on television. Always gives me such a good laugh to count the ahs, ums, so's, and gaffes, especially after watching a college football game and you realize that Toastmasters really needs to be part of the athletic curriculum at the University of Tennessee and other places. Yet not too long afterward, I was assigned an experienced Toastmaster to become a mentor of mine, reminding me where and how to work on different techniques toward improving those public speaking and leadership skills. As I became more involved and dived headfirst into every meeting, I gained further confidence and new knowledge on where and how to take my story into the outside world. This new sense of ambition and encouragement through the Toastmasters world brought me to some of my highest points in ways I never thought I could ever achieve. I've not only shed my anxieties for public speaking in the end, but also develop that ability with never-ending practice, by the way, to tell my story to an upwards of 500 local, national, and international outlets across the globe. Toastmasters gave me my first opportunity to be dolled up with makeup for an interview on CNN headline news. I almost sneezed it all off live on camera, but the courage gave me the opportunity to other opportunities to accept House Resolution 1420 from the Georgia State House of Representatives, to be able to excel with interview skills on CNN, and to be able to hold down an interview with Craig Melvin for a segment on NBC's Today Show, and to show off my baseball skills for a segment on the final season of Baseball Tonight on ESPN. Before long, with hard work and the willingness to go out and network, I'd been approached to perform a talk at a TEDx conference in front of thousands in person, and even the internet, on promoting awareness and acceptance for individuals with disabilities in life throughout and beyond the wonderful wide world of athletics. Now, the mentoring I'd received at Toastmasters continues to this very day as I begin my latest journey, or have continued my latest journey, to power through the coronavirus pandemic with an ambitious venture, 100 speeches in 100 days. I would keep the openness that I displayed as a local Toastmasters Club member, committing to learn from and network with as many Toastmasters throughout the globe as possible, to use this opportunity to quarantine to learn as much as I possibly can to help my own future and to help my ability to help others. I would receive feedback from members of varying walks of life and experiences, whether I spoke to over Zoom to crowds in America, Canada, Great Britain, the Netherlands, Japan, Australia, or the small country of Tunisia in Africa. No piece of feedback was ever deemed to be useless, because everything I learned through the experience is applied toward my continuous growth and the journey to raise awareness and acceptance for those with disabilities. My gosh, I've met some outstanding people in Knoxville, Nashville, Chattanooga, and beyond, and made some great lifelong friends through this experience. I'll always be grateful for these opportunities to learn and experience how those throughout the world can truly learn and grow together when we set our differences aside and work on our skills for the best of human mankind possible. But wait, even after I've already accomplished over 300 speeches in 200 days, I remember that none of this was supposed to happen. For doctors, wasn't supposed to speak in full sentences. For the school system, I wasn't supposed to be included in academics and activities with the normal kids. Ooh. For some baseball coaches, wasn't supposed to have the opportunity to play or to learn a true game of baseball with others. And for other naysayers, I wasn't supposed to be leading a nonprofit organization. Some family members even stated that I was pretty much done with before my life really ever started. Yet here I am today, having power to the perception, power to the stigma, power to the stereotype. Thanks to the help of my mother, my teachers, coaches, mentors, and the Lord above who believed in me throughout the years, I am where I am today, where I carry the dream, the dedication, the drive, and the desire to continue advocating for others just like myself. It just goes to show Tennessee and Southwest Virginia and parts of Kentucky that whether we have a disability or not, and no matter what challenges we face in life, we all deserve that chance to live life to the fullest, free from those stigmas and negative perceptions. No matter where we come from, many of us are told to live inside of this average out box and are told by others what we can and cannot accomplish. Why? We are discouraged from embracing our true selves and our ideas that could feasibly benefit society when we could just have the mentoring help and those to help us advocate for those ideas and for those who we benefit. Instead of discouraging, we ought to encourage others, just like my mother did for me, just like those Canucks did for me down in Florida, and those who always gave me the opportunities to learn and grow, even through the worst of mistakes. We ought to take the time to see others for their own creative uniqueness, hence the term with what I believe to be the real meaning of diversity. We can advocate for what we believe to be right in so many different ways. If we keep that firm stance and stay adamant for change and the protection of basic human rights, my gosh, we are advocates ourselves. No matter whether we're a Republican or a Democrat or a Libertarian or a Green, or we belong to the Church of the Flying Spaghetti Monster. I learned much later on in my life that you don't have to have the physical qualifications on paper to develop that ability to mentor, to advocate, and to help others. Knowledge is nice, and it's power in many circumstances, yeah. Yet most of the time, it begins with the willingness to learn and to defy adversity. Sometimes it requires us to work together too. We ought to support others, to keep an open mind, and at least ask questions, no matter whether we agree with ideas and viewpoints or not. Because when we are able to find that right support system to positively teach and to encourage us to become the best versions of ourselves possible, the sky's truly the limit for what can actually be accomplished, no matter who we are or where we come from. Where can we start, you may ask? Well, perhaps we can start by sharing what we do know and exercise an open mind to help those we know, for example, with disabilities, those who are in disadvantaged and at-risk communities, and or perhaps helping our own communities on an at-large basis. That's why, to me, that ability to self-advocate, to mentor, and to encourage others through societal barriers, stigmas, and perceptions. When we work together and set our differences aside to encourage others, it's one of the truest forms of personal enrichment in all of human mankind. All right, Tennessee, Kentucky, and Southwest Virginia. Let's work together to mentor and to advocate for the rights and acceptance of new generations ahead through our own versions of expertise and create that effective, efficient, and encouraging and sustainable society. Because when we work together, we can truly possess that collective power to make a positive, never-ending difference in society. So what are you waiting for? Let's work together. Time's ticking, you know. Thank you very much, Mr. Toastmaster, Mr. Curator.
Curator, thank you, Taylor. Everybody give a big East Tennessee, Middle Tennessee, Virginia applause to Taylor. Now, Taylor, I know something about you, and I want this district to know something about you as well. In my club is in Knoxville. And in our club, we have difficulty in getting people to give speeches. Anybody else out there get that same problem? Are we the only club? Okay, there's a few more hands out there. Taylor, and if you want to, if you want to have somebody in your club that can give a speech or two, call Taylor. Taylor, I know your goal was 100 speeches in 100 days, but how many speeches did you actually give in 100 days?
Probably 250.
150 in 100 days.
There would be days where I would actually go to as many as 10 meetings at one time over Zoom. That's the commitment level that I believe that it takes to be able to work on those skills and to try to do the best that I possibly can to reach that potential.
Fantastic. That was fantastic. Did you ever get a sore throat or anything like that? I mean, that's a lot of talking, isn't it?
It's fine. I'm used to it. People have been hearing me run my mouth for 26 years now. Well, really, when I couldn't talk and started speaking full sentences, probably 6 or 7. So give or take, people have heard me run my mouth now for 19 years. So, and I don't forecast that changing anytime soon.
Of course not. Awesome. Awesome. Well, this has been absolutely awesome, Taylor. You come and spoke at our club back in December. And I remember you invited me to come to your open house for the 100th day. And you told us then it was not necessarily the 100th speech. And when I was there, there was a lot of people you had in the building. You did a hybrid, but you had so many more that were on Zoom. And if I counted right, you had 11 different countries represented at your open house. And I'm guessing that you probably visited most of those countries, didn't you?
Correct. Yes, sir. Definitely. A lot of those clubs over Zoom. And we not only had my keynote, but we had 3 of our club speakers give competition style speeches. And then we had an international table topic session to where we took winners from different districts and they all did their table topics and we all voted on out of 100 people. And we had some really, really close races, like out of 100 attendees in all. Actually, I think we had close to 120 in all that showed up between in person and over Zoom. I didn't participate in the voting because my speech was so long and so different from the others. Felt like it would take away from that. But the best speaker ribbon was decided by 2 votes out of 100 votes, which goes to show that when you have a high crowd and you put out high quality content, whether you're doing table topics, evaluations, and striving to give your best in speeches, you really never know where you could really take it, whether you're doing it for the first time or where you're doing it for the 100th time.
Yeah, very good.
It was crazy.
Oh, I bet you were absolutely slapping them out of there, wasn't you? Question from the chat I see there. How many clubs are you a member of, Taylor? Are you a member just the one?
Correct. Toastmasters of West Georgia. It's in Douglasville, Georgia, which is a southern suburb of the metro Atlanta area.
Okay.
It's on the west side of it.
Of all those 200, I'm going to give you a hint on this answer. Okay. Taylor, listen closely when I ask this question. Which was your favorite club that you visited? Mississippi. Go ahead. What was your favorite club that you enjoyed visiting? No, I'm kidding. You don't have to answer that.
Well, the thing about it too is that it's really impossible to give an absolute favorite because every Toastmasters club has a diverse makeup of individuals with differing experiences, and it really would be unfair to rank everybody on a hierarchy scale because everybody has their own experiences to derive from and to be able to give and evaluate on what they know, even if they've never evaluated before, or whether they're one of those master evaluators that we hear about in the international convention.
That's right. That's great. Last question then, Taylor. You go ahead.
I got a question. Can I ask a question?
Yes, sir.
Do you know how many states and do you know how many countries you visited through Zoom?
Probably 12 countries.
Wow.
And almost all 50 states.
Very cool. Very cool.
Thank
I think
you.
that would be fun for any of us to do, is to just start knocking out some club visits in other states just to say you've done. You could hang the map up on the wall and just kind of mark it off as you do it.
And plus, really cool. Another thing too is that you can get credit for that toward your pathways as well, as long as your VPE will authorize that. And in addition to, it gives the club members who are evaluating you experience to where they could get credit for evaluating a guest speaker that's a part of another club as well.
Good idea. Good idea. Another
So
question.
it's a good transactional area to utilize when you're thinking about inviting guest speakers over.
Nice. Very nice. Back to you, John. I didn't want to steal your limelight.
No limelight taken at all. Thank you, Taylor. I tell you how we're going to end your speech, and thank you to you is let's all give a tip of our hat to Mr. Taylor for a great speech tonight. I got the best hat too, by the way. Woo.